Greetings and welcome to another episode of the Unnamed Bracketology podcast. My name is Kerry Miller, joined as always by my good friend Graham Doran. Today is our midweek, mid-major extravaganza. But before we get into the Big East, tomorrow's the Big 12 talk. But Graham, how did it feel to deliver the world's greatest reverse jinx tweet of all time to save Kansas?
To be honest with you, I thought the reverse jinx might happen a little bit earlier. They kept it up until the very end. I think they were down by 15 with 3 minutes left to play. Also, 10 or they're down 9, I guess, with a minute 50. Um, or was it a minute 4? I forget, but
Yeah.
whatever it was insane. They were down 5 with 12 seconds to play, pulled it out. That game was crazy. Obviously, Kansas coming back against TCU, but also the Auburn ending. They hit a shot that looks like, how did this happen? There was a free throw that was missed by Texas A&M where they didn't hit rim. Kerry always talks about the fundamental aspect of knowing you need to hit the rim on a shot if you're going to intentionally miss the free throw. Texas A&M didn't do that. Just an absolutely insane night. Turns out that basket didn't count. Just a really, really good night of college basketball. I had the Octobox set up going for a while, for quad box on one TV, quad box on the other. This is college basketball. I love it. Like, you just cannot get better than conference play when you're in home environments. Neutral court games are great. Players' errors, fun to talk about. It's Maui's cool. Nothing is better than conference play when you're at a home arena. It's just absolutely fantastic.
Dude, and for all the things that college basketball does wrong, Tuesdays in January and February are just amazing every time. They're only like 28 games, 30 games every Tuesday, but it's like just six bangers in each window, and there's always something great. Like Michigan almost loses to Penn State. Like, what in the world? You got Kingston Fleming's going nuts last night. I don't know why. Tuesdays always deliver. I love it, but let's talk less major conferences, more mid-major conferences, which includes the Big East. I feel bad to keep making that joke, but we did it about the Pac-12 for a couple of years there. Might as well go back to that well and harp on the Big East, which is, right now for me a three-bid league, for you a four-bid league. Obviously, Connecticut is the cream of the crop. We both have them. I assume you have them at four overall as a number one seed. What do you think is the end game for the Big East if Connecticut happens to go 20-0, or I guess even 23-0? If they don't lose a single game in Big East play or conference tournament play, how many bids will the league get?
I'm leaning towards 3 at that point. I do think Villanova is very well set. They would have to screw up pretty badly from here. Obviously, UConn in that scenario is a guaranteed 1 seed. I think Seton Hall, I'm leaning towards them making the field. I know that they don't always look like a tournament team, but man, they've been so solid throughout the
Yeah.
course of the season. I think Seton Hall is probably going to get there. Creighton and Butler have been a little bit up and down. I don't really see it for either of them at this point. They've had too many opportunities squandered. St. John's is the team that I think will make the field. And it's just going to be a matter of time. But if you look at their resume right now, not a whole lot there. The at Butler win looks better on paper than it's going to look to the committee when they talk about that win. So I think this is something people really do underestimate a little bit. We talk about quads all the time, and those are important, but the committee also focuses on tournament teams. There's a difference between winning at Butler when they're not going to be a tournament team and winning at Seton Hall like Villanova did if Seton Hall ends up being in the field. That is a difference to the committee. And I think this is going to be a situation where the Big East is probably looking at 4 bids. I think ultimately it's going to be UConn getting the highest seed there, probably Villanova next, then St. John's, and then Seton Hall on Selection Sunday. That would be my guess. And I do think we're headed towards 4 bids, but 3 is more likely than 5 to me at this point.
Yeah, and I'm kind of a little bit lower. I think three, even if Connecticut runs the table, it's probably going to be three. At that point, I would say four is more likely than two still, but I do think two becomes an actual possibility. I mean, it depends on how Seton Hall and St. John's fare, but there are just so many bad losses to be found in this league and just not many quality wins. What do we have in the net right here? So we 18, nobody else in the top 30. So the only quad one home games are those against Connecticut and Villanova. And if we're already saying Connecticut's run the table, is Villanova going to hand out any quality wins or not? And then even road quad one wins. I think that's just these six teams. Pretty sure, Xavier, certainly Marquette's not in the top 75. Providence is the only one that's kind of close at 85. But yeah, there's just not going to be great wins to be found. So I'll be curious to see how it pans out. But let's just hit on the teams that we do have in or that we have in. We'll go straight to St. John's then. Uh, when your third best win is at home against William and Mary, I can't put you in the field just yet, especially when you have five losses. You have St. John's just barely in. I have them just barely out. Obviously, the metrics support where you're at, but I feel like they've had enough opportunities that I'd rather put a team like George Mason in the field right now with only one loss. What's your justification for St. John's beyond just the computers are okay with them?
Well, I think the computers are okay with them, which is a part of it. But then when you look at the win over Butler, again, I mentioned I think that's problematic long term. This early into the year, I think it is a quad one win. They've got a second one to go with it over Baylor. I'm a little bit hesitant about the Johnnies, which is why I have it as an 11 seed. But if you look at the entire body of work there, obviously they've been really close to some big quality wins. Think about how well they played Iowa State. I think if it gets into a qualitative analysis there, the committee would talk about that. Be like, man. And there was, if I'm remembering correctly, Kerry, perhaps I'm misremembering at this point, wasn't there a really bad call to end that game that would have given them the victory over Iowa State? If I remember
I
that.
don't I don't remember.
Been a while. That's how
You,
long the
you
season is. But
you might be thinking the St. John's Baylor game last November. I don't
that's
remember what
exactly what
happened
I'm thinking
in
of. St.
Baylor.
John's Baylor last year. So wrong
It all
year,
runs
wrong
together.
team. So you know what it was? I saw the Baylor sitting there on my screen and got confused about that. But that's exactly what it was. My gosh, the years are starting to go together. But really, like I think when you look at the quality of the team in general, I think that will help them. So early on the year, lots of action ready to go. Again, I think St. John's is ultimately going to be above Seton Hall in the pecking order on Selection Sunday. I just think right now they're close to that bubble.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the only other thing I feel like pointing out on the Big East is with Villanova, how quickly things can change, right? Like 2 weeks ago, I don't think if I had them in, they were like my last team in. And then they win. Technically, it's a neutral game against Wisconsin. I think they're probably going to petition against that because it was in like Milwaukee, right? It's a semi away game as far as Ken Palm is concerned. But they get that win. They win at Seton Hall. They win at Butler. All of a sudden, they look like a 5 or a 6 seed. So that's kind of like, the last couple of days we've been talking about Miami, Iowa, right? Iowa just all of a sudden they went from like a 7 seed to probably a 10 after that loss to Minnesota. When you haven't done much, it can change really quick in either direction. I think Villanova is one of the few teams that has actually capitalized on that. What about games in the Big East this week? Obviously, Connecticut at Seton Hall is the marquee game. Outside of that, anything you've got an eye on in particular?
I think if you look at the St. John's Creighton game, that's to me last chance for Creighton. If they don't win
Mm,
that one, that large chances are just out the door. But for St. John's, equally important, as we've talked about right now, their quality wins are fringe tournament teams or bubble teams at this moment. They need to start adding. If you're not going to be able to get the top wins like UConn or Villanova, you better get a big collection of decent wins. And that's where I think St. John's is going to have to go at Creighton, at Butler. If you start to add those up collectively, it could become impressive.
yeah. And right here is where you can see Villanova's schedule versus Creighton at Marquette at Providence. They should win all three. You never know what'll happen. They could go 1-2 and then drop right back to the 10 seed range. All right, let's move on to the actual mid majors. The Big East isn't a mid major. It's just fun to say. But my internet connection is unstable. Oh, that's no good. Can you still hear me, Graham?
Yeah, I can. But to
That was
me,
weird.
Frank, you've been going in and out for a little bit. So
What the heck is going on here? Huh? So much for my updated Verizon connection. What do you have for mid majors? Gonzaga, St. Mary's, Utah State, St. Louis. That's it. Oh, you have New Mexico in. Talk to me about New Mexico.
Well, I think that VCU, you have them as 11 seed. I'm just impressed with the victory at VCU. And let's not discount the Santa Clara game as well. That's also another quality win. I have really enjoyed watching the Mountain West over the past week. Just really a bunch of fun games. I think New Mexico, when you look at teams that are around that bubble, what does the committee usually like? They like somebody who goes out on the road and picks up a quality win. I like winning at VCU more than I like winning at Butler, for example, as we already talked about. And I do think VCU is right there in the at-large discussion as well. So New Mexico kind of snuck up on me. I wasn't really expecting them to be in the picture until I went and took a look at the profile and thought, yeah, actually, this is better than I thought it was.
Yeah, I've got them close. I have them as an NA there, but they're like my fifth or sixth team out. Uh, One other Mountain West team that we have to talk about. What are we going to do with Boise State, man, with that D2 loss? I did not put their full profile on here because I feel like it's deceptive because most of the metrics don't include that terrible loss to Hawaii Pacific, but their overall resume is pretty respectable if you can get past that opening night failure. Where do you think Boise State has to be when all is said and done in terms of the metrics in order for the committee to be okay with them?
I don't know if it's going to be a metric situation. I think the metrics help. More importantly, I think they need to have enough quality wins that the committee isn't putting them right on that cut line. Because I think if they're right on the cut line, it's not going to work for them. I think it's going to have to be a situation where Boise is doing a lot of front loading in quad one and quad two, and they look at Boise as a winning team within those two quads. If that's the case, yeah, anybody can have a bad night. But most of the time, when they played quality competition, they showed up. And frankly, I thought they did show up when they played San Diego State. They just didn't get the victory. Could have gone either way. But I think that was a really, really important win for San Diego State to stay in the picture, even if I don't find them particularly close right now. Whereas for Boise State, I do think that was the victory that had they gotten that, I do think they probably would have ultimately ended up making the field. Now I lean a little bit towards them not making the field, but I just believe in the team at this point. So I kind of feel like Boise's going to do enough to get in just because I think they might be, next to Utah State, the best team in the Mountain West.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think they're looking at their resume. They are top 55 in five of the seven metrics if you include net. I'm guessing SOR and BPI are factoring in that loss to Hawaii Pacific and the rest are not. So that'll be an interesting litmus test on how much we care about ESPN's metrics when all is said and done. But yeah, I feel like Boise State is almost similar to TCU, where TCU they have that loss to New Orleans, their Q4 loss factored in there, whereas we have to artificially remind ourselves every time to factor in that loss to Hawaii Pacific. We're gonna end up talking about Boise State, I think, for most of the season. Gonzaga, gotta at least discuss them because they've had some lopsided performances lately. Terrible defense against San Diego, terrible offense against Seattle. Is it just they got lazy in West Coast Conference play? Are they not as good as we thought? Obviously, we both still have them as a two seed. Where do you have them overall on your line?
Well, I do still have them as a two seed, but kind of focused on where I'm looking at them long term. I actually think Gonzaga's in a little bit of trouble as a two seed because I just don't quite frankly buy the team this year as a true national championship contender. Don't get me wrong. I think they're going to run away with the West Coast Conference. I don't think it's, bad luck that they played these two games against San Diego and Seattle. Very lucky to go 2-0 in that stretch. It's particularly in the Seattle game. I think they were in a lot of trouble with that game. But if you look at their wins, I think we thought they were a little bit more impressive early in the season than they really are. We looked at the Kentucky game like, wow, look what they did to Kentucky, and now maybe Kentucky's just not that good. We looked at the UCLA wins like, hey, that's a quality win. That's UCLA. Wisconsin just beat UCLA. Obviously, a quality win over Alabama, no doubt about that. But the resume is not quite as strong as I think we thought it was early on in the year. And Penn State just played Michigan pretty close. Gonzaga surely didn't. So I think a lot of people said, well, they lost by 40 to Michigan, but Michigan beats everybody that bad. Losing by 40 to anyone is not the sign of a team that's ready to win the national championship, period.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that they're still like top 10 in all the predictive metrics, maybe top five in all the, even with that 40-point loss. But yeah, that's Gonzaga for you. Last thing in this mid-major tier, aside from St. Louis at VCU, which is obviously, I think Rothstein tweeted this morning, that's the only quad one game left on the schedule for both of those teams, which tells you where the A10 is at. Uh, what game in this tier do you think is going to be most interesting this week?
I Did you say we can use Utah State, Boise State? Because I want that one. So
Do
if
it.
I can use
Take
Utah
it.
State, Boise State, again, I think Boise State is absolutely in the running for an at-large bid. If they get this one, I think it's going to stay quad one all year. I like Utah State's team. I don't think this is going to drop to a Q2 game. Could be really important for Boise State to get that win. On the other side, you have Utah State as a 6. I have them as a 7. I think this game is huge for Utah State if they want to end up getting to like a 5 seed on Selection Sunday. I absolutely think that's obtainable this year for Utah State. If the Aggies can get that road win over Boise State, all of a sudden we stop talking about whether Utah State's going to make the tournament and we start talking about how high of a seed is Utah State going to be this year.
Yeah, they're one of those classic teams with a glass ceiling on them right now. I keep wanting to bump them up, and I'm always like, nah, I can't put them to a 5 yet. That's insane. Um, I think it's a nut up or shut up week for George Mason. 3 games: Fordham, VCU, at Loyola. I mean, I don't even know if even the VCU game, that's quad two. I don't know what the other two are going to be. It's nothing special, but those would probably be their 3 best wins of the season if they get them all. I'd love to see the Patriots amount to something since that's the closest team to us, but we'll see if they can get it done. And that will get it done for us for today. Tomorrow will be the Big 12. I forgot to factor in the Wordle of the day today. I got to remember to do that next time. But until next time, take care, enjoy the hoops.